talk a lot about loyalty in the book. It takes time, patience, energy, and practice. It's very easy for them to be drawn away. But eventually, if you keep them long enough, they do build up loyalty. Getting that balance right is difficult.
Yeah, that looks okay.
Okay. Shoulder.
Yeah, for me, it's okay. I'll blend in. So, what you want to do is grab the mic. You want to be about a fist away, I find. Should be good. Yeah, should be okay. And just kind of, instead of having it direct, just give it a little tilt. Don't overthink it.
Already,
Yeah, the reason for that, it helps with the P's. If you're like this, they start to
spit.
You hear this like overmodulation.
Yeah.
So just like that a little bit. I'll adjust you throughout as we're moving, which again, podcasts aren't meant to be perfect anyways.
Yeah.
But you sound okay. It's not covering, is it covering her face? Lynn's face? No.
Nope.
Okay. And then how do you want me to introduce you as owner of like, you've been here how many years? Owner of Sumalee?
Sumalee. Right.
So I don't want to mess that up.
It's a short U and a long A.
Okay.
Sumalee.
Yeah, see, I'm a little dyslexic, so I see things in my head different.
Well, it's difficult. A lot of people call it Sumalee, which is wrong. Yeah, Sumalee.
Sumalee. Okay. And do you want me to introduce you as like the owner, the founder of Sumalee, and pardon?
Founder, I suppose.
Founder, and okay, I'll just go with it. Everything else is just off the top of my head.
Okay. So am I supposed to hear anything?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Perfect. Yeah. Can you hear yourself?
I could hear myself. I don't know if I'm hearing it through there or just...
Yeah, you're hearing it.
Oh, right.
Okay, you're good. My sound's okay. Is it loud enough?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's too loud.
No, it's loud enough.
Perfect. Okay. I guess we're already recording, right? Yeah, I guess we are
recording.
Okay. So you want me to introduce like as Dr. Lynne Miller?
You can do. It's up to you. Yeah.
All right, that's good for the intro. Perfect. Okay, ready? Good. Okay, welcome to Fruiting Body Podcast with your host, Brendan. And today we have a lovely guest. This is Dr. Lynne Miller. She wrote this book. I actually got the audio version. It's called Fighting for Success. There's no promo here. This was originally introduced to me by a friend, Callum Platt, and then later by Mika Wassenaar. She was on a previous podcast, I think maybe, 3 or 4 episodes ago. And Mika was nice enough to lend me the book. I read a few chapters and then I moved on and I jumped on the Amazon Audible, which we'll leave links for that probably in the description, and you guys can head over there and purchase it. I do prefer the Amazon Audible, to be honest, just because it's easier to get through. So without further ado, you know how we do it at Fruiting Body Podcast. We are a medicinal mushroom supplement company that has been coming for the past 6 months. We're actually going to get kickstarted, I think, maybe over the next month. Me and Hans and some people are doing some stuff. I'm flying up to Chiang Mai, getting some interesting products that I can't reveal too much about right now. And let's get this podcast started. Okay, Lynn, Dr. Lynne Miller, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's follow kind of our Fruiting Body Podcast format, and we're going to jump back to your childhood, and we can run through that just so we can really understand who you were and building that character up to taking us to the point of owning and operating a Muay Thai gym here in Phuket, Thailand. And we're really going to dig deep behind the scenes. So this podcast is for anyone that wants to open up a gym, and you're going to learn a lot of life lessons and what you should do, what you should not do. And I think this is just great information it's almost like, let's say, an owner's gym guide of the red flags and maybe not how to fuck up as well along the way.
That's very easy to do.
Yeah, so please introduce yourself to the audience and just let them know all about who you are.
Okay, so I originate from South Wales. I was born in South Wales in a Welsh mining valley called Newbridge, which is where a very famous boxer came from, Joe Calzone. And that is about, in my previous life, is about the extent of my connection with boxing. So, I was born in a small terraced house in a Welsh mining valley, and it's the sort of thing I have reflected on it recently because I knew that this was something that you might talk to me about. And some of the things that we kind of took for granted at that time, but it would be shocking if we lived in a place like this now, because in the mining valleys, you're surrounded by what's called slag heaps. So your view out of the window is often up to a mountain, and on top of the mountain is a slag heap. And in the morning, you're not woken by the chanting of the monks or the call of the mosque. What you're woken by is the siren from the pit calling the workers calling the workers to the shift change.
And this, what kind type of mine is this?
Coal mine.
Coal mine. Okay.
Yeah. So Welsh valleys were very famous for coal mining.
Okay.
And
sorry, just one sec before we jump. We'll cut and we'll jump back in. I'm gonna fix the arcade because it's doing a scrolling thing. Can you hear that?
Yeah, but the other thing is the sound is really weird.
Yeah, the sound it's
I
not.
mean, I'll probably get used to it, but
yeah, it's not crisp, right? It's not.
It's like muffled.
Muffled, yeah. Like, can this sound a bit muffled, or does that sound okay? I don't know. These headphones, those ones can sound a bit weird.
Yeah, it's all right if it's. I feel as if my ears want to pop, like
okay,
like on an aeroplane.
Okay, yeah. And I don't. I
can manage. I'm getting used to it when I first. The other thing is, what about sipping water? How is that?
On the podcast, because again, it's not like scripted. There's nothing really going on. I mean, just get comfortable. Like, don't worry. Like, if you just do that. 1 sec. Yeah. We're not. This is not like, we're not on the clock here.
Okay.
Did you set it up so it won't scroll? Yeah, it's not gonna scroll. Okay, that's better. Sorry, sometimes when that's clicking, and then it's hard for me to pay attention, and it's happened a few times. I'm like, all right, we got to fix that. Once I try to go,
I know what
30 minutes once. I'm like, all right, I can't take it. Yeah. Okay.
Good. Just
we're back.
Yeah.
Clap. Do you clap or? I know I'm always clapping. Okay, so we're back. Sorry, we had to fix the arcade. It was driving me nuts. So we're going back to your childhood and growing up in South Wales in a coal mine type of village. Yes.
Yeah, and our village was near the bottom of the valley, and at the top of the valley there was a place called Ebbw Vale, which had a tin works, a major steel tin works. So the pollution in the river that ran through Newbridge was again, as I said, the conditions that we lived in was quite different. What was allowed and what wasn't allowed. And I remember walking to school, and we'd cross the bridge over the river, and the river was bright red from the
tin mine.
Tin mines, yeah. Well, it wasn't a tin mine; it was a steelworks, and so they were. I don't know what they were doing there, but it was huge open furnaces and.
And was your family, were they working, was pretty much the entire village working in these mines? That was supporting the economy?
Not necessarily at that time, and certainly my father didn't, but both my grandfathers did. And accidents in the pits, we used to call it, accidents in the pit were very, very common. Particularly the time of my grandfather's time, safety did improve, and both grandfathers suffered severe accidents in the pit. My father's father, his back was broken by a big, I can't remember the technical term for it, it was a big chain that swung and broke his back. So he was about 36 at the time.
Like a hoist almost, or?
I'm not sure what it was, but something in the pits, and he broke his back, and he spent the rest of his life in a wheelchair. And the other grandfather also suffered some sort of chain accident where a chain came and took him across the face, so he was scarred for life as well. So not so much in my parents' time, but certainly in my grandparents' time, a lot of people would have been working in the mining village.
What was it like growing up in this type of village? I'm going to, and I'm going to assume, but maybe I'm wrong, that especially in these towns, let's call them like oil towns, we have them in Canada. They're a little bit more rough around the edges. Were these mining towns similar, like a bit more rough around the edges, or was it a pleasant, place to grow up in?
at the time, you didn't think about that. You just grew up in that area. But the whole of South Wales, and in particular where the valley led to, which was Newport, is still one of the most socioeconomic deprived areas of the whole of the UK. Is one of the top indices of social deprivation. So, as I say, at the time, you didn't think about it. You just got on with life, and but it was very. I mean, we literally lived in terraced houses when this was up to the age that I was 17. We lived in terraced houses, and you played in the street, so it was very, very community based, and in a way it was nice. There was something.
Yeah, there's the community behind it. I mean, I kind of grew up in a small town as well, and it was one of those, after school, you're out till dark, and then, you're getting back home, have dinner, and go to bed type of thing. Instead, you're always outside. You're never inside.
Never inside, out in the woods, collecting leaves, collecting blackberries, collecting frog spawn. Never, ever inside, playing netball, playing whatever, two balls up against the wall, whatever. It was nice. It was good. I'm very proud of my background.
This childhood, especially growing up, you're surrounded by hard workers. Like these people, they're working hard. They're rolling up the sleeves, and yourself, kind of, I would maybe label as a pioneer in your time to like blaze those trails for women that are going to be independent in business as well. Did that kind of really, shape who you were today and bring you down that path? Did that play an important role in that?
I think the thing that played the most important role was the standard of education that we had. And at that time, we still, in the UK, I think it was abolished in about the early 1970s, but we still had the grammar school system, and that probably doesn't mean a lot to you, but what it meant was that something like, I'm not quite sure of the exact figure, but at the age of 11 you took a test, and something like the top 30% were creamed off and put into a separate school, like called a grammar school.
A more a higher level of education type
higher
of school.
Of education, yeah. And although it was a state school, it was, when I reflect back on it, it really was something else. And there was a very high academic expectation. All the teachers, they wore their academic gowns on a daily basis, and it was very strict. And it was you had to wear exactly the right school uniform. And when you left the premises, the boys had to wear a cap, and the girls had to wear a beret. And if you didn't wear it, you'd get detention. And but it was. A lot of people now believe that system was wrong, which is why it was abolished in the 1970s. But what it did do, it did give working class people the chance to exceed in education, which probably they would not otherwise have done. I actually moved from there when I was 17, so it meant that I finished my last year of education before.
But it's providing structure, and it's like that. Maybe if you didn't get that opportunity, you might not have at home, in that sense. Or was it still like it's you almost like not in that sense like the army, but your structure can then push over into your career
into your life,
and process. So I find like kids nowadays, without that lack of structure. Even simple things is making your bed in the morning first thing. Yeah. These little things, these easy wins. Yeah. That I find is starting to probably disappear. Yeah. But like
and perhaps I've never thought about it in those terms, but every day you had homework and you had to do your homework. Otherwise you were in trouble if you didn't do it. You either had to write lines or you'd be in detention or whatever. And also, a lot of people in the school, they did come from more professional families. what's the word, more privileged backgrounds, perhaps. Not that my background, not suggesting I was underprivileged in any way, but I certainly wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. And so you were in that environment. You were in an environment where people wanted to succeed, and bear in mind that at that time, only 14% of people went to university. So it was quite an accomplishment to go to university. And within that 14%, only 10% came from working class families.
And what percentage were females to males, too?
That I can't answer you at the moment. I don't know the answer to that. But one of the good things, actually, about the way I was brought up, I was never brought up with prejudice of any kind. And I certainly was never brought up to feel that in any way as a female I was disadvantaged.
Any inequality.
Yeah, I never really thought about that. It was never an issue for me. I was always I encouraged and supported by my parents who wanted the best for me and for my brothers as well. So yeah, I was never, it was something that I never thought about until much later in life because I was brought up without that.
And so you went through this prep school and you made your transition. At 17, you're transitioning to university, which...
No. At 17, my parents moved to another part of the UK.
Okay.
So, and at that time, I finished my last year of what we called at the time secondary school. I finished my last year of secondary school in a different school, but it was similar. It was another grammar school, but it was in the Midlands as opposed to in South Wales. But I went back to Wales. When I went to university, I went back to Wales.
And at which point did you kind of take that decision that you want to go to university and you want to pursue business, as in you're not going down, let's say, the arts route or let's say the social sciences, but you did focus more primarily trying to go down this business route, which kind of...
No. At university, I did psychology. I studied psychology.
But I mean, for the business aspect of like tying that together, yeah.
Right, so that came much later because I went to university, I did the degree in psychology, I was awarded a scholarship, I did the Ph.D, and then I went to work for a big, huge, one of the biggest companies in the world. And I worked for them in research and development for 5 years. And then after that, that's when I started my first business. So I was about 30 at that time. And I started working as a research consultant to a wide variety of businesses. But latterly, as time progressed, I worked mainly in public services. So I used to do research projects for the police, for the health service, for the fire service, and for local government primarily.
And at this point, it's your own consulting business?
Yeah.
Because I think it was Mark Zuckerberg. I was listening to him on a podcast maybe, and he was explaining that if he was to do it all over again, he wouldn't actually go to school for getting into any business administration, management, marketing, finance, whatever. He was explaining that actually he would push it upon his children, go to school for the social sciences, especially something such as psychology, because that will give you a huge competitive advantage. We all learn, once you get involved in business, it's the street sense. You're not going to learn from the school anyways. So you might as well take on a social science. Do you agree with that?
Not necessarily, but not necessarily about I would only send my children to university to do social sciences, because I aspired for both my children to go to university for the experience, which I think is incredibly important. What you learn there is far more than what you learn academically. But what I do agree with is that to be successful in business, in my opinion, you need to have a feel for that. You need to have a sense for that, and you need to have certain characteristics that you can't study. So like I've never written a business plan in my life. I don't know what a business plan is. I always see them as a little bit kind of like, well, anybody could sit down and write what they think's going to happen or what they'd like to happen. But
are you kind of taking that like invest now, investigate later, kind of live and drive, you're driven more by your intuition than so much on the analytical side and making decisions that way?
Yes, I think I probably would say that, but so far my intuition has proved to be quite good, and because I've always had a feel, somehow I've had a feel for what would work and what would not work. So I've never studied business as such. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I did my postgraduate diploma in digital marketing, there was, as part of that, I had to write a marketing plan, a digital marketing plan, which I'd never written a marketing plan ever before in my life. And I've never written one since either. But that's the only time that you could say that there was a little bit of academia involved behind the process of running the business.
And on your side, where was this transition where, now we'll get into the story about the Muay Thai gym and coming over here, because initially you came over with your daughter. She was about age 17 at the time. And let's fast track a little bit to the point of when did you first come to Thailand, not just for the business, but even for like your initial introduction to Thailand? I'm going to assume it could have been a vacation as well.
Yeah, I first came to Thailand in 1984. And at that time, I did a tour of the Far East. I went to Hong Kong, I went to Singapore, I went to Bangkok, and I went to Pattaya.
Yes, and this is, I remember this in the book you're explaining. It's your first taste and you wanted, well, let's not give too much away, but.
Yeah, I loved it. I just absolutely loved it. I remember going back, and of those places that I visited, definitely Thailand was the one that stole my heart. Mm-hmm. I really, really, really loved it. So that was the first time I ever came to Asia.
Have you seen a big change from, well, obviously, I mean, it's kind of it's an obvious answer to this question, but what changes did you see between when you first came until the time you came back to, start your business? And we'll get into the whole aspect of the timeshare and how that all came together.
Okay. So remember when I came back, I went to Bangkok and I came to Phuket. So it was a different place to the place that I originally visited.
1984 you came to Phuket.
No, 1984 I came to Pattaya. Correct. So when I came back in 1999, I came to Phuket. So of course I didn't see any change. Yeah. But at some point, I can't exactly remember when, I went to Pattaya to... because we took some fighters to a Max Muay Thai show. I went to Pattaya, and I mean, it was just unrecognizable. You couldn't begin to describe the difference because it had become a city. And when I was there in 1984, it was a village.
A village in the sense of, and I had a conversation with Colin McKay. Are you familiar with him? He's on the island. He's been here 30 plus years as well. Yep. And he was explaining, and I'm sure this is the point of this is, as you're in Pattaya, probably those streets you were on at the time, there's water buffalo walking around, and now you have full on concrete, jungle.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was like very villagey, and the bars were like bamboo bars, and I mean, I can't remember the details, except I do remember that in the center of these bars they had Muay Thai fights. That was my first introduction to it. There were like little bamboo bars that you would maybe get in somewhere like Koh Chang, or it was very, very. I can't say there was water buffalo, but there was. There were big hotels there.
It was sleepy still. It was still very. The infrastructure was still very undeveloped.
The change in that was absolutely enormous. As far as Phuket's concerned, well, like you, I've been here for 12 years, but I've been coming here for 22 years now. What happens here is so gradual. The thing with Pattaya, because there was such a long time before I visited the first time and I visited the second time, you could very clearly see the difference. But what happens when you're living in a place and it's gradually changing all the time?
Well, you don't notice it. It's like the frog in boiling water, right?
Yeah.
But when you leave and come back,
it's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, even for yourself, probably when you go back to the UK, you notice changes. But when you live here, it just again,
it's
it
just
gradually.
gradual, yeah. But I mean, a couple of in recent years, I've had to be I was in the UK for longer periods of time, and on one occasion I was away for 6 or 7 months, and then when you come back, it's oh wow, that wasn't there, or that wasn't there. I mean, if anything, I personally feel as if since COVID, the change is accelerating. It hasn't slowed down.
Well, I think it's a kind of a reset going on here and restructuring. I feel like they're trying to turn Phuket into more like a luxury island now. It seems like they're trying to get rid of like that riff-raff feel where people associate Patong with old men and ladies. That's the association if you think of that. And I feel like they're trying to clean that up a little bit.
They're gradually moving towards that objective. Yeah.
Okay, let's jump ahead. And this is, again, for anyone that is interested in opening a gym here, I think you're going to learn a lot of life lessons and, again, what to do right, what not to do as well. But, again, check out if you want to, they can purchase the book is it on Amazon as well?
It's on Amazon. Okay. We have some at Sumalee as well.
If anyone, again, if we have a lot of international followers as well, you can find it on Amazon. But, again, you can get the Audible, which makes life easy.
Yeah, and you can also find that on Amazon. Yeah.
We'll jump into the book. I think probably getting closer. I'll try to jump ahead to maybe chapter 2, chapter 3. The first few chapters, you really explain how it came together and how you were able to decide to move to Thailand and stay in Thailand. But I want to jump ahead to your first experience going down to Nai Harn and actually getting involved in a business of Muay Thai. Can you kind of just explain how that all came together and maybe some of the more important lessons you learned from that experience?
Okay, so when we first came to Thailand and we lived in for the extended period of time in 2009, we lived in Nai Harn, and at that time, I was a lot fitter than I am now, and I was quite keen to continue with my exercise regime. Not least because I had this lifelong goal to have a gap year and to spend the year on the beach reading books, right? And the first thing was we came in rainy season, so to walk down to the beach, get everything set up, get the book out, and then it would rain. So that kind of plan fell by the wayside very early on, and it's like, having a year off doing nothing sounds great, but if you've been busy all your life, it's like, what am I going to do now? So I was keen to exercise, and we met some Muay Thai trainers in a bar in Nai Harn. And we got talking to them, and they said this is what they did. And of course, by that time, I knew about Muay Thai because I'd met Decathlon, and I knew about Muay Thai camps and such like. And I said, I'd love to do that. I'd really love to do that. And they said, well, come. And I said, no, I'm far too old. And they encouraged me to go. And I trained at that gym almost every day for a year. And
what year or this is 2009?
That was 2009, yeah. I trained almost every day for a year, and it was energizing, it was liberating, it was so much fun, and I met so many people, and bearing in mind that prior to that I'd been leading a life which was very much home, bringing up the children, running the other business, and it marked a huge change in.
What did your kids
lifestyle.
think of that when mom's, she's everyday training for a year in Muay Thai? I mean, they must have saw a drastic change, maybe in your personality or character as well.
So did you say my kids?
Your
think
kids?
Of it? Well, my daughter was with me anyway, so she trained.
You had to make that leap into training, and that's no joke. I train Muay Thai. The most I got into is about 4 days a week, and it's grueling on the body.
It is absolutely grueling, but bear in mind, I wasn't fight training.
No, but I'm assuming you're doing a little bit of...
I lost a lot of weight. I felt confident. I felt good. And to be honest, I mean, my son was at university in the UK at the time. I didn't really ask them what they thought. And my daughter kind of was along with the journey. So I suppose it was gradual for her to, there would have been a change in both of us. We were both changing. We were both developing and learning new things and growing as people.
Well, mentally too, Muay Thai every day for a year is... it's dedication. I mean, there's a certain point where your body is exhausted. I find Muay Thai in particular, like out of all the exercise I do, in terms of the HIIT cardio, is the most intense. Try if you do 5 rounds of pad work for 3 minutes, and you haven't done it in like a month, I can't even. I'm on the ground laying down.
Yeah, I certainly couldn't do it now.
Yeah,
but anyway, as a result of that, I ended up. Talking to the owner and sitting down talking after training and this and that, and he started asking me my opinion and my advice on various aspects of the business, so I used to offer that. And then at one point, he just asked me if I would like to become his business partner and invest in the gym. And I think I said in the book, I mean, at the time I thought, oh, wow, this is, because I'd always had this bucket list ambition to live and work in Asia. That ever since I came here, when I was very young, I'd always had this ambition to live and work in Asia.
To at least allow you to kind of not feel you're on a vacation. Like you're living the life of...
Just wanted, to have that experience. Yeah. And I mean, many times over the years, I looked at... I used to have Marketing Society journals and British Psychological Society journals, and I used to look to see if are there any jobs in Asia that are of interest, and the opportunity never arose. So this was like, wow, this is going to give me something that I'm really, really interested in doing this. So I did, and it was naive in the extreme. It was extremely naive, and because I hadn't been here long enough, I didn't know the culture well enough. I thought I knew the business, but I didn't know the business. And fortunately, I did exercise some common sense, and I didn't just blindly go into it. I went into it with a contract. And the contract was that I would pay 50% of my investment in advance, and that if I was unhappy during the first year, if at any point I was unhappy, then the money would be returned to me. And in fairness, the money was returned to me. And that's one very positive thing that I can say.
I've listened to this part of the story, and I'll let you tell this, but... Did you have it on contract besides just the investment, your scope of work? Because with that part of this initial business, essentially the owner just wanted the investment and didn't want your input, correct?
It's very difficult to really determine what his motives were.
What is more, yeah.
Yeah. I personally, I think he had a plan, and I think he knew what he was doing. But I also think that he, and his main objective was to get the investment. I think initially he did and was open to my input, my thoughts and advice. But then it became all too much for him. Yeah, he didn't want to do it.
You're saying that you were giving the advice, but maybe things were moving too fast. For him, instead of just, okay, let's do one thing, then let's do the next. So when you approached him, were you trying to change like maybe 10 things at once instead of one at a time?
I can't say that.
Or let's go into this specifics, in terms of it could be the marketing, it could be the branding, it could be the sales strategy. Specifically, could you talk about one aspect of the business that you tried to change for the better for him that probably was being done not in the right way?
I think probably one of the things, and I don't want to go into too many details about this, one of the things that I was quite interested in improving was customer service and customer safety. And we had big differences of opinion regarding that. And then when you have, I mean, I certainly never, ever tried to advise him about Muay Thai and boxing. I never, ever went down that road.
Yeah, you're doing the soft skills.
That was not within my scope or
Yeah.
my ability. But it was about it. The thing that caused the day-to-day friction, I think, was about customer service and about customer safety. And, you have to remember that he'd had the business for 5 years. And, to a large extent, he'd gone along just fine and not really had any big problem. And then to have somebody coming in and telling him, maybe we need to think about this, maybe we need to think about that. He didn't want to do it. He just didn't want to. He didn't want to accept that. And you'll know yourself from having been here for as long as I have on a long-term basis. Thai people are very proud, and they have their ways of doing things, and very few of them have been exposed to how people do things overseas. So they're only really.
It's like you were saying, they're living in the moment more than trying to plan. It's not planning too much for the future.
Yeah.
It's like, it's kind of being the boss of any company, they're just kind of putting out the fires during the day instead of fixing the problems.
Yeah. But there's a saying, you can't know what you don't know. And so if you've never experienced a different way of doing things, it's hard to comprehend that and take that on board because you've always got away with doing it the way you do it. So that caused a lot of day-to-day friction, and it caused me to be concerned about what I was doing and what I had invested in.
Turn this phone off. We won't. The microphones won't hear it, but we will. Usually, I'm pretty good at that. All right. See you later. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm not sure if this was the same. Because you did jump to another Muay Thai business and then finally to your own at the end.
No, I didn't.
So you've gone from this one because you're using names now. Is this the business that was referring to Tay? You used it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I think that'll help connect it in the book if you listen to this podcast.
I've
and then
forgotten
read the
what
book.
I call
yeah,
the
exactly.
people now.
Yeah. So you're referring to Tay and this business partner. And if I'm correct, specifically, you're talking about the customer service, and you gave an example of a time where one of the fighters or students came in and they didn't have they bought the shin guards and they didn't have them that long, and they wanted to return them because maybe they found them cheaper somewhere else. But everyone needs to understand that when people come visit Thailand, and especially when they're coming to live a Muay Thai lifestyle, no one is here for monetary benefit as a fighter. You're just not going to make a lot of money. They're here because they truly love the lifestyle, and they're on a shoestring budget most of the time. So when someone like that, I don't know the name.
I'm going to disagree with you on that, but
well, some people do have.
They're not here to make big money.
Okay, this is my point.
But a lot of people do use it as a means of making money to enable them to stay in Thailand for longer.
Yeah, to allow you to stay. Yes, and back to the point was, you're changing the customer service, and this would be one example when someone wants to return shin pads. And as we all know in Thailand, if the money leaves your pocket, it ain't coming back.
Yes, but it doesn't have to be like that.
And that's something you were trying to change.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like that.
And is that something that,
and
that was the friction?
Yeah, and that was a small kind of example.
That's why I'm using that from the book.
But having come from a society where our standards of customer service, if you like, are quite different, it's actually quite embarrassing. So when you say the guy hadn't had them for long, he'd literally taken them. He hadn't taken them out of the wrapper. They were literally as they were when he bought them. And it's really embarrassing to be put in the position where you're the messenger, where you're the one having to say, oh, no, sorry, no way, you can't do that. No, I didn't want to be put in that position because I thought it was mean-spirited and embarrassing. And so as I say, that was kind of a simple example of the type of thing that I was required to do. And there was a phase where if a person said they were going to fight and they were put on the fight poster And then they didn't fight. They were asked to pay 3,000 baht to the promoter because he'd used their name to promote the show. And so they were asked to pay 3,000 baht. There were examples of people that couldn't fight because they were ill, and they were genuinely ill. And I'd be the one that have to go up to them and say, look, and these are fighters that haven't got any money, and try to extract from them 3,000 baht. Well, I didn't want to be the one to do that. When it was a genuine case, it wasn't fear or anything like that had made them back out. So it was stuff like, a lot of it, to be honest with you, it was daily. There was stuff going on daily. That was there difficult.
Kind of the needle in the haystack, or sorry, the straw that broke the camel's back, where you said that? Can you talk about that in detail of like, what was the last straw where you're like, okay, I need to part ways?
I talked about it in the book, which is where it was the way an incident with a young female guest was, the way that was dealt with was the straw that broke the camel's back. But the back was pretty broken already by that stage.
It was ready to go.
It was the final thing. Yeah, that made me say, right, this is not the business that I feel that I can put my name to.
And especially things aren't changing when you're trying to change.
Yeah, well, it was getting worse because a very typical response to somebody who's trying to encourage you to change, if you don't want to change, is that you stonewall. So again, you become more and more resistant to change. So actually things were getting worse, not better. So.
Let's go a little darker into the back scenes, like really what's going on behind in a Muay Thai gym, especially, and let's begin from the children and them entering the gym and how they progressed as fighters, as kids, into trainers, and then into potentially going on to careers internationally or trainers internationally, and really what goes on behind the scenes as those kids are being pushed. How do they come to the gym originally? Why do they come to the gym? Especially as we were talking, almost they're acting on, not as a foster home, but almost as a daycare initially. Now, my understanding of that is the kids are brought because maybe they could be orphans, their parents can't take care of them, or again, it's just a daycare for the kids. Now, is it kind of like a win-win in the sense that those kids are brought into the gym initially, and they're being taken care of by the gym? However, they're going to have to fight, they're going to have to clean, they get free education, they get free accommodation, they get food, but they need to go fight to make money back for the gym. And
so can I just stop you here to make the distinction here in that, so you're talking about traditional Thai gyms.
Correct,
right?
yes.
You're not talking about Somali because we've never taken children.
More traditional Thai gyms.
Yeah.
And because this is more, evident, especially in places like Isan and whatnot.
Yeah. So what's the question?
The question is more like, let's walk us through that journey or that career path of a Muay Thai fighter, starting even at the age of 4 or 5, and where they can actually end up, and maybe you can fill in the gaps along the way of typically what actually happens to those fighters. Do they keep moving on? Do they go? Do drugs get involved? Does alcohol get involved?
I mean, it's impossible to answer that question because each gym is different. And you will get some gyms that are very, very good gyms that look after the children properly, that make sure that they're educated, that make sure that they have good nourishment, that take care of their emotional needs, that are aware of them. And then you get some gyms that are not like that at all. But so it's impossible to generalize about that, because I think there are some very, very benevolent people within the world of Muay Thai, but there are a lot who are not so benevolent and are only ultimately looking out for their own means. The end result is for themselves. So it's really impossible to answer that question because every gym will be different.
Generally, the kids that are starting at a young age, are they coming? I would assume the majority of them are coming from less privileged families.
Yeah.
But do you occasionally get like privileged families bringing young kids in as well?
I personally don't know.
Okay.
I don't know of that. And the one thing that I do know is that as Thailand develops, the number of children that are going into gyms is getting diminishing.
Diminishing now.
Yeah, and certainly somewhere like Phuket, which is one of the more affluent provinces in Thailand, I would imagine that there are very few gyms operating on those traditional principles where they are kind of like substitute orphanages. I don't know any in Phuket that are still operating like that, but there will be others, and then it tends to be very regional as well. So there are a lot of gyms still in Isan and in the south of Thailand, which is the poorest areas of Thailand.
Like Hat Yai and
and Songkla, Nakhon Sit Tamarat, places like that you'll still get the small local gyms. But in a place like Phuket, Koh Samui, there would be very few gyms like that because
that aren't pushing the kids.
People are not as poor in those areas.
When you first started in your first business and you were to look back at this, is there like a couple life lessons that you could share with anyone that is looking to open a gym that you would have done differently?
Right. Well, I think...
or I think the specifically for that situation, more partnering with someone that's Thai and in a gym that, specific to that situation that maybe... from the beginning or the end, the entrance or the exit strategy that maybe you would have done different to prepare yourself for that?
I would tend to avoid that now. I would not put myself in that position again.
As in partnering, or what do you mean by that?
As in a partnership.
Okay.
I mean, all foreign business here have to have a Thai partner,
Correct.
as you know. But I would not choose to go into a business where ostensibly my Thai partner was an equal decision maker. And I say ostensibly because actually in that business I was the one that wasn't an equal decision maker. One of the lessons that I learned, and really I should have known this anyway from many years of being in business, you have to take control of your business. You have to be the one. You have to be the decision maker.
You can't have too many cooks in the kitchen.
I mean, there's a very, very long-standing adage that you never go into business with friends or family, or it has to be very clear what everybody's role is, and who's the one that ultimately makes the decision, and you have to be very comfortable about that. And you have to remember that the culture here, and I'm not saying the culture is wrong, and I'm not saying that our culture, more westernized culture, is right. There are good and bad of each, but the culture is very different. Mm-hmm. The way people think are very different, and that's very, very difficult to reconcile.
Can you give an example of how, like a Western culture and Thai culture in business, whether it's a decision-making example, is different?
Okay, yeah. So, right. One caveat that I'd like to say before I say anything is that my experience of business in Thailand has been within the Muay Thai fraternity. And so that brings with it a particular type of person that has a particular level of education. So you have to bear that in mind. So I always felt that soft skills such as business acumen, such as knowledge about marketing, such as customer service, all of these things that we in more developed economies are more familiar with are not really valued. Mm. The things that are valued are more concrete. How much does it earn? Where's the money coming from? And there's
They're very focused on the bottom line almost.
Yeah, very they undervalue other skills that are brought to the business. And many businesses in Thailand, and especially a place like Phuket that gets so many tourists, they are successful because they are here, right? It's easy. They're in a beautiful location, and people, prior to COVID, people come in their hordes. They're in the right location. They're there, and people go to them, right? And so with that background, they kind of they don't think, oh, well, it could be better, or we could grow this business if we did A, or if we did B, or put into place this marketing strategy, or tidied up this end of the business, we get more, because they're already satisfied with what they have.
Yeah, it's set up and people are coming anyways.
Yeah. And so they're not kind of thinking, they're not necessarily thinking of growing the business.
Do you think that mentality changed because of, we try to say the current situation just because YouTube doesn't like the word.
Right.
So because of the current situation, do you think I'm assuming a lot of Thai gyms closed down, but do you think the ones that did survive and started to realize how delicate their business can be if any pandemic were to occur, that maybe those soft skills such as marketing, improved customer service, building a brand, building an image are probably even more important than the hard skilled side, meaning like having the right trainer, because people are going to come to the gyms for the trainers and the fighters, and they want to be a part of that. And do these fighters fight at Lumpini? On your side,
some people come for that.
Yes,
Some, yeah.
But my point is, you probably saw a lot of gyms close, correct?
Yep.
During the current situation. The ones that survived, what was the difference between the ones that failed and the ones that survived because of our current situation?
Okay, so obviously I don't know the background to the position of many of the gyms that survived. I think what I do know is that many of them, for them, it will take years and years and years to pay off the debts that they've accrued. And a lot of the bigger Thai gyms that survived were able to survive because they owned the land, which made a big difference to. So
they're not paying rent.
Yeah, so to their ability to survive. It's very. I think a lot of the smaller gyms went, but equally, I think a lot of other smaller gyms have come.
They've grown. They've come.
They just and the thing is, especially if you run the business informally, and if you have family that own the land, it's relatively cheap. If you're not a registered business and you don't pay tax, you don't pay VAT, you don't pay social security for the staff, it's relatively cheap. You don't actually, if you own the land, you don't actually need much money.
But that's going, as a foreigner, that's going to be near impossible.
It's impossible for a foreigner. Yeah.
How is the community in Thailand of the different gyms? Is there hostility between, like, say, certain gyms on the island, without naming names, or do you guys kind of all get along as a community?
I think in the past there was a lot of hostility, and historically there was a lot of hostility, but probably much more than these days. Personally, I feel that the new situation has engendered more cooperation. That's not a huge amount, but it's kind of like, we're all in the same boat now. And I've probably been more open myself to communication and interaction with other gyms than perhaps I was in the past, because we've all had a really tough battle and we've just had to get through it, and we've all been in exactly the same position. So, and maybe that can grow. I don't know, but generally speaking, the gyms are very, very competitive.
Yeah, because I would assume if there's fights at like let's say Bangla Stadium or Patong Boxing Stadium, whatever, and like you said, you could have a fighter get sick. But if you're working as a community, you could ring up, another gym and say, hey, my fighter's sick. We don't want to lose the match. Do you got a guy that can jump on short notice? But I'm sure if politics come into play and they just don't get along, even if they have the fighter, they might just say no. Now, does this ever occur where you need to ring up a gym to maybe fill in a spot and they help you out?
That wouldn't be the job of the gym. That would be the job of the promoter to do that.
Okay. But the promoter, I mean, are they making it clear that, hey, I'm calling up another gym to help this gym, but they're going to know, do you know what I mean? Like, okay,
to be honest with you, I think generally between the Thais, there's a lot more cooperation than there is between the Farangs.
Okay.
I think generally the Thais are very, very cooperative with one another, and they will help. The
trainers at all the gyms around here, they probably have their own internal community. Most of them they do know each other. They hop from gym to gym, correct? I had an interesting question because I've seen it happen. I've seen gyms have an issue with, let's say, a trainer. And usually if that does occur, it's very difficult to release a single trainer. And in fact, you need to scrap them all. Have you faced this, or is this a fair statement to make? Have you seen this happen?
Well, we actually had the reverse, where when we started Sumalee and we had a problem with our head trainer, when he went, he took more or less, not all of them, but he took all the trainers with him.
That's what I mean.
We learned very early on that it's not a good idea to recruit a group of trainers.
Gotcha.
So we tend to recruit from, they all kind of come from different directions, which protects us a little bit from that.
Because they're still going to create a brothership while they're there, but at least it's not, they're coming, as they're flying together.
Yeah.
I was reading in the book, and I'm trying not to give too much away, but it's still fresh. You were talking about how do we incentivize the trainers that we bring on not to leave and go to China and go to Singapore, because everyone needs to know the pay is obviously going to be much better. So what did you do specifically to keep your trainers so you weren't getting poached or they weren't jumping ship after you've invested so much time and energy in them?
So with us, we just brought basic business employment principles, which was the trainers have contracts, the trainers have holiday entitlement, they have some leave. We pay expenses for them to go home twice a year. We give them paternity leave. And the main thing, which they like, is that if they stay for 1 year, they get not 1 year's bonus, 1 month's bonus salary.
And then that added up. So year 2, it's 2, and okay.
Yeah. No, not quite like that. No.
Okay. Well, no. Okay. No. I see your point.
Every year,
but China,
if they stay for
China's
a year,
like this too. Yeah.
Yeah. If they stay for a year, they get 1 month bonus salary. The salary still does not compare with if they went to work in China or they went to work in Singapore. But a lot of Thai people don't want to do that. They like Thailand.
They like Thailand, yes.
Yeah, they like being here. They like the lifestyle. We sent one. We had the opportunity for one to go to Korea at one stage, just for 3 months, something like that. And he was very, very unhappy there. He didn't like it.
Well, it's
so
the lifestyle is completely different, right?
Yeah, and they often the gyms overseas are set up in a completely different way. So, I mean, the Thai gyms, it's 2 hours training in the morning, 2 hours training in the afternoon. The rest of the day is spent relaxing, maybe doing private lessons if you're lucky. But, the time is your own. Whereas they're more likely to be working all day long, and so the contracts of employment are quite different. They earn more, but they have to work a lot harder to get it. And their families are in Thailand. Their children are in Thailand. They like Thai food, and so many, even if they have the opportunity, don't want to go and work.
And also the language barrier, right? This has got to be very difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. Most Thai trainers, their English level is quite limited to the boxing, let's say the situational boxing English.
Yeah.
Outside of that, like left, right, maybe food, numbers, directions.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it's pretty much.
It's very.
It's very limited.
Yeah.
I want to get to the story of how you started your gym, but this is before I forget this. I do want to ask that. Let's talk about the gambling in Muay Thai and walk us through what is happening, because a lot of people won't understand this. I understand it enough, but obviously you're going to have more details on that.
I'm not an expert on the gambling.
No, but explaining to the people that, like, okay, so let's go to any boxing stadium and you have 5 rounds, and letting people understand how the bets are going down, who's organizing them, but like within the stadium itself, and the importance of rounds 1 and 2 as feeler rounds before these bets come in. Because I think a lot of people don't understand how that gambling works. Like if you have 2 Thai fighters that are getting to the ring and, people have to gamble, they're not going for a knockout in the first round. You need the gamblers to place their bets, the bettors, make those bets. And that usually doesn't kind of settle until, is it round 2 or 3 before?
Yeah.
Can you explain that a bit? I don't think we get in trouble.
So I'm certainly not an expert in gambling. No. So I can only tell you what
you've seen.
What little I know.
Yes.
And which is that in general, a lot of the betting that goes on in local stadium is kind of like fun betting, right? And there's not big money involved. It's whatever, 500 baht, 30 baht. Well, perhaps 30 baht is a bit long, but small amounts of money, and it's informal. The real when the betting gets big is when it's a big fight between 2 evenly matched Thais mainly. And that's what the gamblers are really looking for, is an evenly matched fight, because then it's more exciting, and then you don't really know which way it's going to go. And as far as I know, there'll be different. There'll be informal betting going on. There'll be betting between the gyms going on. In the Bangkok Stadium, there'll be people that are gambling a lot of money, and it might be the gym owner, it might be friends of the gym owner. I don't think there's one answer.
No, you're not in that world. You see it, but you're not involved in it, right?
Yeah. Because I think one of the things that you focused on a lot during this discussion is that you're focusing on the fighting all the time. You're talking about the fighting, the gambling, the kids being brought into the gym. Muay Thai is much more than that, and it's not just about the fighting. And the people that come to train in Thailand, only a minority come to fight. The vast majority come because they enjoy the sport. They want a training vacation. They want to try something new. You'll get certain gyms where there's a very high proportion of people that come specifically to fight, and then you'll get others where the actual proportion is actually quite small. So, and the bigger element is definitely the element that doesn't come to fight. So don't, when you're thinking about Muay Thai gyms, don't just think about
they're coming kind of. It's even a health and wellness type of retreat as well.
Yeah, and that's growing.
Yeah.
The proportion of people that are coming to do that is growing exponentially, whereas the fighter market is probably diminishing.
Your gym in particular, are you getting a lot of the fighters coming to go to the bigger stadiums in Bangkok, or is it a mix of both?
I mean, in the current situation, there are a few foreign.
You have some water.
Sorry, no, it wasn't the water I'm trying to get. In the current situation, there are relatively few foreign fighters around. And they also, most gyms are not looking to sponsor fighters during this period because they're a financial burden, because it's difficult because there are very few fights available. And so how are they going to earn money? How are they going to survive? So, and obviously any responsible gym owner is not going to want to have to see people around them that are finding it difficult to survive. And so currently the number of foreign fighters in Thailand is it's
Drastically reducing.
yeah, very, very much reduced, yeah. And gyms have to adapt to that because we don't know how long it's going to take to grow that that side of the business again. So and being adaptable is one of the most important skills in any business. Is being able to adapt.
I think that's what makes us human and why we're the number one species on the planet.
But some people are not very good at it. Some business owners are not very good at it. And then they fall behind and then suddenly they realize,
it's too late.
It's too late. The world's changed.
When do you see things coming back to how they were before the situation we're in now? Do you see this taking another year, a couple years?
I think it will happen quickly. I think once the restrictions
are lifted.
There are no more restrictions. They take the restrictions away. I think it will happen quickly.
I heard they were going to take away if you don't have a vaccine. So currently, if you don't have a vaccine and you come into Thailand, I believe there's a 10-day quarantine right now. Obviously, if you have the vaccine and you come into Thailand, it's just you're doing your test and you wait at the hotel quick and you're good to go. But I heard they're going to take away, if you don't have the vaccine, you don't need to do the 10 days. I'm going to assume a lot of Muay Thai fighters, and I know a few in particular, such as Magnus Andersson. I'm not sure if you're aware of him. He used to fight it. Yeah. So Magnus, he's Swedish. He was on the podcast episode 3 or 4. He took off. He's actually training at Tulum Muay Thai with the Farrells, Eddie and Eddie and Brooke in Mexico. Yeah. But he didn't have the vaccine, and that was one of his main concerns. And I'm going to have to assume you probably get a lot of fighters that are maybe ready to come here that are from Australia or the UK that might not have the vaccine, especially because they're very dialed into their health and maybe they don't want it. Now, I'm not going to go down whether it's good or whether it's bad, but do you think that could be also a reason as to why you're not seeing a big push in fighters coming back?
I honestly don't know the answer to that question because I don't know the statistics.
Or just hearing it around.
Yeah, I honestly don't know the answer to that question.
Do you get seasonally returning customers, maybe like a customer from Australia that comes every July and he does 2 months and then he goes home and he comes back the next July? Is this...
it's a huge section of our business, It's a huge section.
These
I mean, I wouldn't like to put a figure on it, but a lot of our customers are returning customers.
That's what I assumed as well, especially the ones I think I'm assuming that are living in the Southeast Asia area, whether it's, you're in finance in Singapore, working in Hong Kong. You probably get these people that come in and do 2 weeks, 10 days, whatever.
We don't get many from Hong Kong at the moment. But
no, I don't think so. Yeah, I think there's still 21 days. I used to work in
14.
China. 14. China, I think, is 21.
I don't know.
I used to live there, and I haven't been back since I left, but it's a bit of a nightmare. That's why you're not seeing many Chinese in these tour bus here because they can't. I mean, they can't get back in. Yeah. Okay, so I think those were more personal questions for me, and I really wanted to understand that.
I really don't know the answer to that.
Let's jump. Tell us the whole story of Sumalee, correct?
Yeah.
Sorry, it's dyslexia. I can see words in my head and the pronunciation. Okay. Walk us through that story from the beginning of how you initially came up with this idea to open your own gym, what you did to grow it, and where is it at today?
So, so I was at the previous gym and I decided that I needed to come out of that business, which I did. And at the time, I had no intention of opening another gym. And but both my daughter and I were here, and we'd taken when we originally joined the gym, we'd taken a fighter that we'd known for some time, and I'd helped quite a lot. We'd taken him to the gym, and my previous business partner felt that it wouldn't be a good idea if that guy still stayed in the gym and worked as a trainer if he still was in contact with me, which was a strange decision, but that was his decision, and the fighter felt that because I'd helped him a lot, that wasn't a tenable position for him, so he came out of the gym as well. So basically, there were three of us. Suddenly, without anything to do, and what we're going to do now? What's the plan? And I just said, okay, let's do it. Let's open a gym, and that's what we did. And it was audacious. Really, it was quite an audacious decision to make because apart from the relatively brief period in the previous gym, I'd never had any experience of owning a gym, running a gym,
opening a business in Thailand. Where to start?
Yeah. And so it was difficult. It wasn't. None of it was easy, and throughout the whole 12 years, none of it's been easy. And I was very lucky. The one huge asset that I had, which most people don't have enough of, is that I had my daughter who very, very quickly became fluent in Thai. And she helped me enormously with setting up the business because at least I knew what was going on.
How detrimental was she to the success of the business and just filling those gaps of maybe communication barriers?
Yeah, I mean, I did another podcast recently, and the guy asked me, what has been my greatest challenge, and I would say definitely the language has been my greatest challenge. And although I've made quite a bit of progress in the language, I'm still not articulate. I'm still not fluent, whereas she was, and she was crucial, really. And because she came here so young, she understood Thai culture, and in the early days as well, she had a lot of Thai friends. So she mixed with Thai people most of the time, younger Thai people. So she understood Thai culture very well, and she could pick up a lot of stuff, a lot of vibes that were going on that I didn't understand.
Being able to read between the lines.
And not only that, just overhearing what people said. And it was, I remember in the early days in the previous gym, some of the trainers, and this happens very frequently, some of the trainers were talking about the customers in Thai, and laughing and having a bit of joke about them and things like that. And she was able to pick that up. And she says, oh, do you realise what they're doing? And do you realise what they're saying? And so that was another area of friction because I felt that was inappropriate. And so that was a change that wasn't very much appreciated. So she was crucial, really, in assisting with setting up the business. And frankly, I really don't think I could have done it without her.
Yeah, I mean, and especially not only like having someone that's speaking Thai and helping with those bridging the gap on that communication, but someone you trust.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That was enormously important. Yeah. And I really cannot understand any foreigner that has a business here that doesn't speak at least intermediate Thai. Yeah. Maybe I'm a control freak, but I have to understand what's going on in my business. I have to understand the legal structure. I have to understand the finance. I have to understand what my accountant is doing. I have to understand, I just have to understand every aspect of the business to feel comfortable with it.
When you're dealing with that stuff on the back end, finance, accounting, legal documentation, is everything in Thai that needs to be translated for you to understand what's going on?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example of this, which is current now. So we recently were awarded a hotel license, right, for our business. So that meant that when people came in to Thailand on the Sandbox program, they could come and stay with us.
Like a SHA?
We're SHA
Okay.
plus now, but behind that is a hotel license, right? So in order to it's quite a rigorous process that you have to go through, a process of inspection that you have to go through, and that bit wasn't the problem. But what is the issue now? Because so we can accept guests from day one when they come into Phuket, but everything's in Thai. All the information about SHA Plus is what it's called. All the information is in Thai, and all the documents are in Thai, and that's really, really challenging and takes up a lot of time.
To make sure that you're following the right process and rules and
following the right rules.
And who's helping you on that side?
Well, I have, because my daughter now is in the UK, so I have my SHA Plus manager.
Okay.
But I was talking to a Thai person about this morning, actually, because what they tend to do, they have these informal groups that they use the Line app. So it'll be all the Thai SHA Plus managers, using the Line app. And they don't necessarily go to the person that they should ask, to the person in authority that they should ask. They ask between themselves, and some of them are not that well informed. And it's really difficult digging down to what do you actually need to do. So to give you a concrete example, we had a young lady from Germany come in this week, and she'd already delayed her trip because she had the virus. And
yeah, no, I know it slips out because we're like, how do I word this?
She'd already delayed her trip. And so she tested positive on February the 18th. She did 10 days quarantine in her home country. She tested negative on February the 28th. She tested negative again on March the 4th. She came to Phuket and she tested positive. So apparently the rules are, if that happens, she has to self-isolate in the hotel for 10 days. And digging down is to find out what she actually needed to do and what we actually needed for her not to have to isolate took 2 days of my time, because I'm feeling sure that the information that I'm getting from these informal channels is not the correct information. And that's difficult, and it takes time. I've started to learn to read Thai, but I'm nowhere near what you would need to do to read these documents. Yeah.
But that's also because, I've been here during the entire time. I haven't been back in 4 years. And you know how it's been throughout this process. Every day something changes.
Oh, that's
the nightmare.
An absolute
So
nightmare.
the rules are like, for example, so I don't have the vaccine, whatever, but I didn't know I could leave the island. And then I found out, okay, I can leave the island, but I need to, no problem. But I got to get back into the island, I need to do an ATK test. So I went out to Krabi or Raleigh Beach, and okay, you just go to the pharmacy, give them 100 baht. I was at nearby Ao Nang, went over to Raleigh. Anyway, so went to the pharmacy at Ao Nang, got the ATK test, and then paid the 100 baht, and I need to do the test, give it back to them, they'll give me a document to get back into Phuket. But they just give you the box and go, okay, you go outside and do it. So I look at the box, and I'm like, I can just spit on this thing, do this, squirt it, and it's negative. So I did it. I didn't want to jam this thing. I knew I was fine.
Yeah.
So I did it. They won't even take the test back. They're like, no, give me your WhatsApp, take picture. I'm like, so I could have, now I don't need the box. I could take a picture from a week ago. You do it, you send the picture, you get the document. Then you drive back into Phuket, you cross the border, and I got all my documents ready to go. It's 7 p.m. on a Sunday, and I roll the window down. I'm with my Thai girlfriend, and then the police, you just roll it down. I'm about to show it, and they
that's
go.
Because people are,
Nothing.
And it's exactly the problem, actually, that I was referring to, is that people, they're not following the rules.
They're not, but you do need that document. You do.
Yeah.
But
yeah, they are not, they're not following the rules. So that these informal channels, they're all taking shortcuts. But sometimes that can really, if you don't do it properly, like with this particular customer, if I'd allowed her not to self-isolate without having the right documents, if she'd then gone on to somewhere else and somebody was following the rules,
you're in trouble.
then she would have had problems. Yeah. So fortunately, I did actually manage to find a document in English, and I now know what the procedure is.
Well, until tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. But I cannot tell you that how the extent and the systems. It's. I think when did they actually start the sandbox? In July. So
probably
what
July.
Are we now? March. So in 8-9 months, we've had at least 4 different back-end systems to run this program of
your requirements, what you need, and
it's
like a checklist.
It's an absolute nightmare.
I could imagine owning a business here. I work online, so it's okay. I don't have to deal with it. But running a business must have been taking at least an hour of your day. Did it change today? What changed? What do we have to do to adapt?
And then it changes it, and it's in Thai, and it's very, very.
Do you think
challenging.
we're kind of there now? Like we're near the end. We're near the end. Yeah. Okay, so back to the running this business and opening it. Let's say I'm a foreigner and I want to open up a Muay Thai business. Could you walk us through the steps right up from day one, opening a company, getting land, maybe even building the gym, right up to the point of opening the doors? Are you able to walk people through a fast track process?
Yeah. And they have to read the book to find out, because that is going to take too long to go through
I got it. Okay,
but there are, and it's not because I'm trying to persuade people to read.
No, because it might be a 45-minute conversation.
It's going to take too long.
So that's
the
perfect sales pitch.
However, there are some things that I would say, which is, number 1, think about it very carefully. Number 2, do the maths, work out. Be very, very careful about just imagining. One of the big things with Muay Thai gyms, and I get this time and time again, I hear this time and time again, oh, that gym's really busy. Oh, they must be so profitable. And often they're not at all, because they haven't actually quite worked out how to do it. And even if you know it's difficult, but if you get that formula wrong, you're going to be running a business where you're always going to be struggling. Because one of the things that I didn't put in the book, maybe because I didn't think of it at the time, it's a subject for another book maybe, is the outgoings, especially as a foreigner, the things that you have to pay every month.
Hidden costs that you would never think about.
You don't think about it.
Can you give some examples?
I'll just give you some examples which are easy ones to give. Which is, so you have to have health insurance, you have to have a business visa, and you have to have a work permit. And in order to get the business visa and the work permit, if you don't want to leave the country every 3 months, you have to have 4 Thais
per farang.
Members of staff per farang. So you have to have them, and you have to have them registered for Social Security. You have to pay the Social Security every month for them. You have to pay your own personal tax every month, and you have to pay the actual amount that you have to declare on the work permit is 50,000 baht, and you have to pay the tax on that, whether you earn 50,000 baht or not. And 50,000 baht doesn't sound like a lot of money.
Per worker per month.
Per foreign worker. Foreign worker per month, right?
Yeah.
So that doesn't sound like a lot of money. But during the last few years, that, with all the other costs of the business, you're still having to pay the tax on that.
Is it 20% or on the 50?
Oh, no, it's quite low. I think
okay.
personal tax is something like 7%. It's really, really quite low. And you have to be registered for VAT to get all these things. So...
What about the cost for the registration? Are you paying lawyers that have to do that, or are you able to do it on your own?
It would be very difficult to do it. You have to pay, this is another cost.
An agency
month.
Or something.
You have to pay it, you have to pay an accountant every month to do all the stuff to submit all the documents that you have to submit, to pay all the taxes, to pay all the
Thailand
social security, and oh god, yeah. But to get the work permit and to get the business visa, it's just like a pile of documents like that, and in those documents are all the business papers, all the proof that you paid the social security for however months they want, the proof that you paid the VAT, that everything's paid out. You have to have a license to, like in our case, we have a license for the yoga, we have a license for the restaurant, we have a license for the Muay Thai, we have a license to rent motorbikes, and I'm sure there's something else as well.
So and you're paying for all those licenses.
All those licenses.
Are they expensive? I mean, obviously different values, different licenses, but are they?
The license per se is not expensive. I think they're about 3,000 baht each.
Okay.
But and there are like ridiculous taxes, like the sign tax. And
what is that?
That sign tax is if you have a sign, any sign.
Like to your entrance to your gym.
Yeah.
Like an advertisement promote. It's like a logo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like at the front of our gym, we've got 4 big like vinyls. We have to pay a tax for each one of those. So silly things that...
But it's nothing... It's per month you're paying a tax or just per year?
It's annual. I think it costs us... Our sign tax is about 10 or 12,000.
But that's...
but there's...
That's something you would never think about.
You wouldn't think about.
No.
Yeah. And so that's my biggest piece of advice, is to sit down and work it out before you start. What income are you going to need to cover all of these costs, and how are you going to do that? What do you need? So for example, in a Muay Thai gym, especially one that doesn't have any accommodation, how many people do I need to get through the door every day to cover, on average, to cover all of these costs?
Finding your break even.
Yeah,
what's
to
my
break even. Yeah. That's without any salaries.
Right.
And how am I going to do that in a country, because you can't get loans, you can't get overdrafts at the bank, so you all the time have to be in credit.
Yeah, you need to be very liquid here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing, and this is something that people don't think about enough, is so if you're young, how am I, in addition to all of that, how am I going to earn enough money to invest for that time in my life when either I can't or I no longer want to work? And that's a huge issue that not enough people think about. What's going to happen when I'm 60? Is this business going to give me enough income to invest the money that I need to invest?
So you're not just getting by. Like at least you can. You're looking forward to a retirement.
That, because I don't know what the Canadian system is, but for a UK citizen, if you don't work in the UK, if you don't pay into the fund, then you don't get a state, or you get a very minimal state pension, which would be very difficult to live on. Even the maximum state pension, you wouldn't want to live on that. So you need to invest money. And am I going to have children? And if I'm going to have children, how do I want to educate?
And I think that's very important, because if you come here to open a gym and you're going to have kids, I mean, the BIS is $1 million baht a year.
Yeah.
If you want to go, probably the cheapest.
I think it may even be more, or maybe I'm thinking of the boarding side of things.
Maybe with the boarding, but even Kaojang Kiat is minimum 12 to 15,000 US a year, which is, I mean, school's free in Canada.
Yeah.
So if someone was coming to open a gym, and they would probably come with the mentality of, doing their budget or business plan on the from a westernized perspective. We can pretty much probably get that number quite close. Would you give anyone like a percentage rule of thumb as a contingency? Like whatever you think you're going to spend, add 20%. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I've never really thought.
Just to give them some breathing room.
Do you mean a contingency
like
for business expenses? Do you
mean like, okay, I think the business is going to cost this much to open, and I've done all my math, but there's so much hidden stuff that you're going to miss so much. You better add another 20% because I bet you missed this, and this, and that could actually add another 20 on top of what you initially estimated.
Yeah. The other thing that people don't think about is the maintenance. It's constantly. It's like a revolving program of maintenance. The equipment, the buildings,
it's never ending.
The speaker, the gym, the fan in the fridge, the whatever. It is literally
something's always
never
leaking.
Ending almost every day. Oh, I've had to go buy a new spray for the toilet, or I've had to buy paint for every day. Money is going out to for these sundries that you would never factor in, and then there's so much I can't begin to. There's the website hosting. There's the payment for all the software that you need. There's so much of these hidden costs that you don't think about.
Your system software, if you have a CRM, your accounting software, QuickBooks, whatever, you're paying monthly fees.
Yeah, all these monthly fees. Yeah.
What about when you're opening up let's say. I don't know if I'm going to call it the hardware, but like, let's say I would assume the canvases are very expensive, right? Like you're talking at least 30,000+ baht, maybe more. Like the actual canvas in the ring.
Actually, ours didn't cost. We just bought one, and it cost 15,000.
50. Okay, I heard somewhere like 30. Is there something specific that's wear and tear within a gym that's going to probably be the most expensive cost, and you need to repair every year or every 2 years that you should kind of be aware of that cost?
Well, it wouldn't be the canvas because our canvas it's the only time. No, it's the second time we replaced it. Yeah, think about it. It's the second time. So maybe the canvas once every 5 years, perhaps more in a very busy gym where you've got a lot of fighters using it. The gym infrastructure. The main expensive thing there would be the mats.
Oh, the mats, like so they're not the non-slip mats.
Yeah, and
the ones
sponge,
the ones you need to clean so people aren't getting staph infections.
Yeah.
Okay, this is constantly being
I think
changed?
We've done ours about every 3 years, every 4 years, something like that. But the gym itself. The cost of maintaining that is not. It's not frighteningly high. That's not a big. It's
not going to break the budget.
Yeah, it's not a big concern. I'm trying to think of any major.
What about like trainer turnover? It's like indirect costs in terms of like you've invested so much like mentally in these people that maybe it's not draining on the wallet, but it is on you. Physically, emotionally, like mentally having to deal with that. Is that a difficult aspect of the business?
It's not so much now. In the past, mainly now, actually, we've kept our trainers for quite a long time. I think we've got 2 that have been with us for about 8 years, 1 that's been with us for about 6 years. So we tend to keep the trainers. Now, in the early days, I talk a lot about loyalty in the book and building up loyalty amongst your staff, and that takes time because the thing I explain all of this in the book about how, especially people that have been brought up in Muay Thai gyms, they've got loyalties to their pinong, their older brothers and their younger brothers, and they it's very easy for them to be drawn away. But eventually, if you keep them long enough, they do build up loyalty to you as well. So, and getting that balance right is difficult. Getting that balance and getting the authority over them that you need in order to run a tight ship it takes time, patience, energy, and practice.
Is there easy upward mobility for a career growth of a starting trainer, or is there a ceiling?
Yeah, that
Because
that's a big problem.
I have to imagine that even if a trainer starts at a young age, let's say 18, 19, and that they're a trainer. I mean, eventually by 40, 45, that's a long time.
Yeah.
You can't keep being a trainer. You're going to burn out, I would assume. And how can they plan for the next phase of their life? It's a long question, I guess, but and typically what do they do after training? Because again, you cannot train until you're 60. Do they open a gym? Do they go work a business? What typically happens?
Well, I give you an example of a conversation that I had with a trainer the other day. I'm trying to encourage the trainers to be more skillful in building up their Instagram profiles. And what I've explained to them is that, I'm encouraging you to do this, and I'm showing you these are the techniques that you can use. I'm showing you this because this is important for our business, but it's also important for you because I think our oldest trainer must be about 38, something like that. But our youngest one is maybe 25, something like that. And I said to the 25-year-old, you're young and you've got many years ahead of you of working. And if you can build your profile up and you can, get people to find you on Instagram and they like your style, and then they'll come and they'll come to train with you and they'll follow you. If in the future, Sumalee's not here or whatever, then these people will follow you and go with you. And I said to him, you're young, you're 25. How many years ahead of you do you think you've got to work? And he said, 5.
Oh, God.
Really? I said, 5. He said, yeah. I said, what are you going to do after 5 years? Gaban, which means
go home. Yeah.
Go home. Gaban tam suan, which means to be a farmer.
Yep.
You're going to go home to be a farmer. And I'm like, so their ambition is different to ours, and a lot of them do want. He's from Isan. They want to be with their families. They want to be with people that they have things in common with. So I was like gobsmacked, that he came out with that answer. No ambition as we would.
But are they coming here and they're saving and they're able to actually save? So when they go back home, they kind of have, some sort of savings in the bank instead of just kind of going home broke?
Before the recent last couple of years, a lot of our trainers were doing very well. And because we get a lot of customers who purchase private lessons. So a lot of them, some of them were taking home like really good salaries for a Muay Thai trainer.
Oh, especially if they're getting privates. I mean,
they were and they were getting tons of them, and almost all of them had cars, and I was really proud of that. I felt very proud of that. But of course, a lot of them, they lost the cars during the recent
because they couldn't make the payments, and
they couldn't make the payments. So this guy that I'm talking about, if he does go home in 5 years, he will go home more or less broke.
Okay.
He won't have a substantial amount of money.
I was going to jump in. I always check with Hans. How are we on time?
1:30 already.
Oh, okay. So that's usually we try to cut it. I have one more question. We try to cut it off there. It's for the Google algorithm.
Yeah.
Or sorry, YouTube algorithm. We love you, YouTube. I don't know if I say that enough. We rank better. But the last question I wanted to jump into, and this is kind of where, I'll try to finish your book, the audio side. I think I'll maybe another week. I just try to get through it in the gym, and it's for me, it's enjoyable. Again, it's actually a very good listen, especially if you're interested in the Muay Thai aspect and you've been in gyms before, you'll really connect to it. Or if you lived in Thailand, or if you want to come to Thailand. The question is more about your experience working with Saenchai, and I don't think I need to go too deep into it. If you can just kind of reflect on that.
That was, I mean, I focused a lot on the challenges. Today I focused on a lot on the challenges. Working with Saenchai was an absolute joy. I cannot tell you that period was beyond exciting. It was amazing. It was truly a very, very unique and exciting experience in my life. And my experience of him, he's a great guy. You know, he's humble, and he's obviously extremely talented, and he's fun, he's charming, and it was a short period.
Said it was about 8 months to a year.
Yeah, yeah. I can't say more than that. Really, it was a very.
He came to act as a trainer, so this is going
not as
or is it more
such.
PR?
It was neither of those things really. I suppose it was PR really, and I mean, the gym transformed overnight. When he came, the gym transformed overnight in terms of the number of people training there. And they were very clever for a long time, because it wasn't clear that he had left there for several years. It wasn't really clear that he'd already left the gym, but he came to be. I mean, he was a fighter as well. He trained to fight.
Yeah, because you were saying
it was the beginning of. I talk about it as well in the book about it was the transition phase for him really, which I think was coincidental in as much as it wasn't necessarily related to the fact that he came to that gym. It was, things changed in a big way.
Because it's kind of near the end of his Thai fighting career. And now he's going into his international, let's say, world tour.
Yeah, it was the start of his international career. So he was still very much, he still is now. He was a very much an active fighter. And so he trained at the gym as well. And he didn't work as a trainer, but he would give seminars and he would give private lessons, but he wasn't, there every day working as a trainer.
Would you get a lot of people coming to join the gym because they knew they could have a glimpse of Saenchai if we were able to come train for an hour?
Yeah.
Is that the?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
How was his English? Were you able to communicate?
At that time, I mean, I really don't know how it is now. Poor. His English was very poor. At that time, my Thai was pretty poor as well. My daughter Rian was able to communicate.
Which year was this?
It was 2011.
Oh, so he wasn't that old. He must have been 31.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because he's got to be about 40 now. Okay. Yeah. So 31. So he's still in the prime of going on his international world tour. Yeah. And you said he ended up doing 88 fights or something? Yeah, that's
not all for that gym, but and since then, I mean, I got that information from Wikipedia. So
I saw that.
Since then, it's probably even more.
Why? I must have missed this part. It must have just slipped my mind. Why did he decide to come kind of do this PR for your gym? I mean, there's many gyms on the island or in Thailand. What specifically drew him towards you guys? Because
my business partner knew him.
Okay.
And he was available. We were able to offer him what was, in fact, a ridiculously small amount of money, given his.
No, you explained that in the book, the cost, and you said it was all under budget and everything worked.
Yeah. And he needed the money, believe it or not.
And maybe as well, because people also need to understand these bigger fights in Thailand, you're still not breaking the bank. I mean, it's not like an MMA fighter where they're getting, let's say, $100,000. They're not getting this. They're getting maybe, if the top, $300,000, and they don't even take it all.
Yeah.
And it goes to promotions and PR and gym. They're not really taking it all home. No. So for him to go overseas, he must have that was his payday.
He was. I have no idea about his financial situation
Yeah.
now, but the one thing I can tell you, he was not well off at the time.
Of course.
And he was definitely not well off, which is, I mean, I talk about lack of investment in the sport,
Yeah.
which is incredibly sad, given his talent and unique talent and what he achieved.
Especially his status. He's a very entertaining fighter.
Yeah.
If you ever watch him, he does this
Charisma,
handstand head kick and
so
great,
much
yeah.
time for everybody. And we did seminars at the gym, and you'd get like 40 people attending, and every single one he would spar with, I said, "Oh, so tired! I'm so tired." But he'd still next one. Yeah.
And one of my last questions before we wrap it up, who's the winner at the end of the day financially in the Muay Thai industry? I'm assuming it's not the fighter. Is it the gym? Is it the gamblers? Is it the promoters? Who's actually taking home the bag?
Well, it certainly isn't the fighter.
Yeah.
And it's
Well, I'm assuming the gym is profitable. I mean, they're able to operate.
I talk. The only person in the hierarchy that's guaranteed the paycheck is the landowner, the stadium owner, because it's a fixed cost.
Got it.
So when you hire the stadium, it's a fixed cost, and they get that. That's not to say that they earn the most, because probably, I suppose, the next one would be the gym owner stroke gambler. And in most cases, the gym owner will be the gambler.
And the promoter, because this is another position as well, like another part of that ecosystem?
The promoters take a huge risk, because if you put on a show and you have fixed costs.
And you don't sell tickets.
So if you don't sell tickets, so the only one who's absolutely guaranteed is the landowner. And frankly, that goes right the way through business in Thailand. It's the landowners, ultimately, that are the winners.
You break that down in the book, the cost to put on an event.
Yeah.
So whether the fighters show up, whether it doesn't matter. If you've booked that event, you're paying the landowner for that cost that day. Didn't you say it's something like 180,000 for the night or something?
Oh, it will depend, and it will depend on the stadium. That was 10 years ago at Bangla Stadium.
What about here in Patong?
Patong is different.
It's the one that's in the back road.
Yeah, that's different, because they own that and they run the shows.
And they own the land. And they own the brick and mortar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that one's different. For Bangla, the promoter at Patong is the owners of the stadium. At Bangla, the promoter hires the stadium.
Okay. And the last thing, I just want to throw it back to you before we let everyone know where they can find your books. Find your book. Is there any piece of information, one final nugget you would like to share with anyone looking to open a gym that it's a gem? Hey, this is a very solid piece of information. I feel you guys should know this, because you're not going to find this on YouTube or any type of research. This is only from experience.
I think I've already covered that when I talked about the outgoings.
Okay.
I think that would be my main pieces of advice. Think about where you are in the life cycle.
Mm-hmm.
In my own case, I'd already had my career, and I'd already done my work and made my investment for my retirement. Mm-hmm. So think about where you are in the life cycle, what your life cycle plans, ongoing life plans are. Think about that, and just think very, very carefully about what your costs are going to be and how you're going to meet them.
And the last, not piece of it, but more about the story of your gym. What does the future hold? what are the next steps? Are you doing anything interesting, or are you going to be part of the business for the foreseeable future? If you can share some information on that.
Obviously, I don't want to share too much information. On
Whatever
that,
you feel comfortable with. Yeah. No, don't worry.
But it is likely that I will be taking more of a backseat in the business. But and I will always be there as a shareholder and an advisor, but it is likely that I'll be taking more of a back seat. And what I'm currently doing is working on what the best way of achieving that is. So that's something that I'm working on.
And let's, the last thing, I guess we did 3 last things.
Yeah,
comes to my head. Can you just paint a picture of the facility in terms of what you offer, what you have? Because I'm aware, like Mika came on, and also I believe I heard you're running a yoga, like yoga gangster or something. Is that out of your facility as well? No, maybe not. No. What else? Because you have the restaurant, you have accommodation, you have the.
So it's like a Muay Thai resort, really, in that we have the gym area, which is the center of the site, and it's also the center of the business, and it always will be the center of the business. We have 16 rooms, which now come under the status of a hotel, and those rooms are of various standards, catering for different budgets. And just for your information, something you might be interested to know, and this is the way the business is moving generally, for us anyway, is that our 4 most luxurious rooms are the ones that are constantly in demand and constantly full. So because we the people who, and this is why I wanted to point out to you earlier on about, don't just think about fighters, because there are a lot more people coming into the sport and enjoying the sport, and they're doing that fearless warrior thing. They're professional people. They want to come and they want to train, and they want to train hard, but they like to be comfortable.
And they also don't want to get kicked in the head.
Sorry?
And they don't want to get kicked in the head.
Yeah.
You're coming to do, it's for the wellness and the experience.
Yeah. So and the important component of that is the nutrition aspect, which we've worked on a lot and are continuing. That's an ongoing project we're continuing to.
And are you guys doing strength and conditioning as well? Do you offer these other, or is it strictly more Muay Thai, yoga?
Yeah, it's mainly Muay Thai and yoga and the nutrition side of things. I often marvel at gyms that have these big programs, because whenever we've tried to diversify in that way, just a little bit of a waste of time. Actually.
You're spreading yourself too thin.
Yeah.
Like, do you see yourself going down the jiu-jitsu, wrestling,
Never.
MMA route?
Never.
Just keep it very focused.
No. Yeah. I love Muay Thai. I love the beauty of the sport. I know it sounds may sound to some people, how can you say it's a beautiful sport? But it's a very artistic sport. To do well in it, you have to be really intelligent too. It's not just a physical sport.
It's a chess game.
Yeah, and we will never go down the route of MMA or.
That's good. I started actually, it's a funny story, and I was going to show something, but it's okay. I actually did my own Muay Thai event. I must have spent, it was during COVID. I think I can share this information now. It was during COVID, during lockdowns, and I went out to Jamrock. You know that ring there at Jamrock? It's in Naiharn. It's like a ring. It's a ripped apart, rustic Muay Thai ring down in between Karan and Naiharn. And you go down there, and it's super reggae and whatnot. So I threw an event there. I worked with Eddie Farrell and Brooke, because they were the ones that got me the fighters. I basically just financed it all. To be honest, I was just bored during COVID. That, like, why we have this studio.
Have we stopped recording?
No, we're still going.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the end part of that. And basically, I put on them. Oh, there it is. Maybe you can click that open. So I filmed this. We're still editing it. I called it Muay Thai and Mushrooms, because we were going to do product. And is this the fight? we filmed it. We didn't know what we were getting into. It was pretty intense. Maybe, can you pull that up? Are you on the YouTube? Okay, he's going to pull that up. So I'll explain it a bit. So we found this rustic, cool area to put on a fight, and I went to put on 5 fights, and I started at 1 p.m., and I was we set up a table like this. Eddie was doing a commentary. We had an announcer, we had a ring girl, we did interviews. We just filmed it all. Yeah. We're actually still editing it. We only did 1 release of the video, and Hans will pull that up. Yeah. The guy down there, so we were paying, what did I pay? I gave the fighters like 3,000 baht each, because again, I didn't charge any tickets. I wanted it as a charity, and I wanted it for the content. Next thing you know, 100 people showed up. I'm like, it's COVID. I hope nothing, the current situation, hopefully nothing happens, blah, blah, blah. We're okay. I hired a rock and roll band. So all the entrance music is like classic rock, but it's actually coming from the band in the background. Yeah. We did some cool entrances. Maybe you can fast forward a bit to the first entrance. I think it's quite cool. Go to the very first entrance of the Thai, maybe the Thai guy. Rewind a little bit. Go back. Let's see. Back. Keep going. Right here. Yeah, that's it. So we got the Thai music going, if you can kind of hear it. We're going around with one of these cameras here on a gimbal. Yeah. I've set up about 4 cameras. We had, and that music is coming. It's not. I can't hear the music. That's music from. I can't hear it. Oh no. We can kind of. It's like that Thai.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, music. We put a GoPro 360 on the ref's head. So actually, I can see that, there's another version of this video on YouTube you can go watch, and it's virtual reality. Yeah. So you can grab your phone and walk around the room, and you're on the ref's head. We're still going to edit. We might do it, but you can see Frank Hickman's there. Magnus was there. Obviously, Magnus is watching. He can't fight these. He would murder these people. Yeah. I mean, he's a professional fighter. But these guys, this was working with Powerhouse at the time. I guess we're hearing it come through our headset.
I can hear it now.
Yeah, we set it up, but I'm a bit of an attention to detail freak, so I always try to make it as best as possible. You can hear the commentary. They have the mics down there. What's funny is we messed up the commentary, and we had to go meet Eddie again and re-record the first couple rounds, and we just watched it. Just the audio cut out. You can see me in the left corner. And it was just, they had a great time. This is February 2021, so they haven't fought in a year. Yeah. And everyone was going like ballistic. It was the first, I think, event in about a year. Yeah. Anyways, we'll cut it off there because it takes a bit. This Thai guy does a cheeky leg kick to start it off. They touch and he just hits them.
Too anxious.
Yeah, too anxious. Okay, so we did some mushroom stuff there. It's all health stuff. So I guess we'll cut over to me. This is Fighting for Success by Dr. Lynne Miller. I got to get this back to Mika. I highly suggest the Audible book, especially if you're on the motorbike or you're in the gym. It's very easy to digest. I found it's a very easy listen. It's an easy read. And the information is extremely valuable. There's a lot more hidden gems behind the scene, I think, that we didn't touch upon. Mm-hmm. And it goes much more into detail. So we'll cut back to you, and if you can just give us some, if you want to hold
one last thing.
Yeah, the one last thing is if you can plug yourself, where people can find you on the island, where they can buy the book, and also a little bit of information, particularly about the gym, and if they're looking to come to a Muay Thai camp.
Okay, so this is the book. You can find it on Amazon. We also have copies of
this camera. Yeah.
We also have copies at Sumalee. So you could drop it anytime and you could pick up a copy there. As Brendan said, the audiobook's recently been released. And so we're in Phuket. We're on the east coast of Phuket, right in the middle of the island. So if you ever want to come and try some boxing or yoga or eat some delicious vegan food, then you're very welcome. Please come and see us.
Perfect. Okay, thanks a lot, Lynn. Much appreciated.
Thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed the discussion. And it's been challenging and given me...
Hopefully it didn't put you put you through the ringer.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah, no, it's tiring. That's why I need to film one tomorrow because I take off to Bangkok and My girlfriend's like, just film 2 in a day. I said, are you?
Yeah,
it's exhausting. It's exhausting.
Yeah, it's just tiring.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys. Like, subscribe, smash all that stuff, and enjoy. See you later.